A long time ago, I had a lot of tightness and stiffness in my entire body. Even though I started stretching regularly and things got way better than they used to be, it was only when I started doing what we're gonna do today that everything truly changed and it suddenly made click. And my body never had the same problem again. When it comes to fitness in general, we're usually looking for measurable results. A bigger biceps, a better stretch, getting deeper into a specific position. And while things like that are really easy to measure, quality of life benefits are a little bit harder to quantify. And that's where most trainers and fitness gurus forget what it's really about. Quality of life improvement that can be measured by how you feel in your body, which is very subjective. Today we'll be talking about one such thing, which are full body integrating complex movement patterns. Exercises that integrate your entire body, take your joints through a complete range of motion, and combine the four major aspects of training, which are strength, flexibility, endurance, and coordination, all into one singular exercise or drill. Starting to work on this like a decade ago didn't just completely change my approach to training, but also permanently changed my body, made me stronger, faster, more mobile, more limber, and most importantly, almost completely injury-free for the past decade. Primal movement patterns. If I had a nickel for every time I talked about the insane benefits of those exercises, I would have to Google what a nickel is, because there is a lot of coins coming my way. Adding animal movement patterns is probably the most holistic way of training your core, connecting your upper body to your lower body, and the thing it does best is quite literally target the four main pillars of fitness. Talk about peak efficiency. Crawling or animal movements are the pinnacle of bodyweight core exercises, helping you build massive amounts of strength while learning how to coordinate all four limbs through an ever-increasing range of motion, and is by far probably one of the most accessible ways of training your entire body in one single go. Starting out with the easiest quadruped beginner-friendly exercise first, which is the classic baby crawl, an exercise that requires the tiniest bit of strength and the tiniest bit of coordination, moving the right side with the left and the left side with the right in a unilateral movement pattern until we develop the necessary coordination to start adding a little bit more strength requirement to our movement pattern. And of course, every one we learn, we will also reverse backwards, so we can start increasing our coordination learning bonus throughout every one of these patterns. Moving up a little bit more in difficulty and adding some core engagement, raising our knees the tiniest bit and staying with our hips almost at shoulder height. We're gonna go through the bear crawl, which is now going to require a little bit more quad, hip strength, as well as core strength. And don't forget, we want to reverse the movement as well. Once again, moving right side with left side and left side with right side, adding the tiniest bit of shoulder and arm strength to the whole movement. Now adding a little bit of a posterior chain stretch as a small bonus, modifying our bear crawl to an extended leg bear crawl, just like so. Now this one is a little bit easier than the upcoming crawling patterns that are going to require a little bit more flexibility. You can start out with knees bent and extend them more and more till you can extend your legs completely, move forward and backwards once again until you feel totally comfortable moving asymmetrically with all four appendages. Adding a sideways or a lateral movement for a small change with our knees slightly raised, or a tabletop position if you will. All we need to do is move sideways once again, just with tiny steps, keeping our knees up, our core engaged and our arms extended, and using now our glutes and our adductors to move with our legs into one direction and then into the other. Now, since we've worked a lot on our anterior chain when it comes to strength, let's switch it up to our posterior chain. Our feet flat on the ground and our hands also. We're gonna raise our butt and move through the crab walk. Left side, right side, and right side, left side. Once again, asymmetrical movement patterns with our arms extended and our knees bent all the way forward and all the way backwards. And taking this exercise to the next level moves us from the crab walk to the reverse tabletop walk with our hips further up, requiring even more strength in our posterior chain, meaning our glutes, our spinal erectors, and our biceps femoris, this muscle here, and of course into both directions, keeping our hips up. Trying out some of the more explosive movement patterns for a change. With both hands on the floor, the frog leap, tiny jumps, bringing our hands all the way behind our feet, placing them in the front, and once again jumping until our hands are behind our feet. Tiny jumps in a controlled fashion with our hips all the way down, as close to the floor as possible, and reversing this movement into the other direction. Taking this one to the next level, raising our hips a little bit higher, almost to shoulder height, or even a tiny bit higher. We can go through the gorilla leap, which is a little bit more upper body dominant because we are shifting our weight more upwards and forward, meaning we can add a little bit more shoulder and arm strength and release some of the strength we're going to require for our legs. And while we're still working on the jumpy patterns, we'll go through the lateral ape-like movement patterns with very tiny and short jumps from one direction into the other. An amazing exercise when it comes to working on hip, knee and ankle mobility. And with the next one, adding a little bit more flexibility as well as mobility for our hips. We've got longer lateral jumps, extending one leg, moving with our hips actively pressed towards the floor from one side to the other until the other leg is fully extended. Tiny jump, extend, and switch. Tiny jump, extend, and switch. And of course, once again, switching it up into the other direction, so we are just as coordinated from one side towards the other. And while we are still on the ape-like movement patterns, knuckles on the floor, raising our knees and pushing our hips downwards actively and our knees outwards, we're gonna walk with an upright back, a more upright frontal ape-like movement pattern, which is insanely effective when it comes to building hip strength, especially when it comes to our hip flexors and our adductors, forward and backwards once more. And the second variation, which is a little bit more upper body dominant, is raising our hips to shoulder height when going through the ape-like asymmetrical movement patterns, now requiring more strength in our arms and our shoulders. Once again, this asymmetrical movement pattern, hips up to shoulder height or a tiny bit higher. And of course, it's sideways variation. Hips at shoulder height or higher and moving sideways with our arms completely extended. Once again, on our knuckles, tiny movements to the right and tiny movements to the left with our back completely extended. Now switching to a more flexibility dominant movement pattern, once again a frontal one, this time with our legs completely extended. Now we have a little bit more flexibility requirements than we did with our first extended bear crawl. This is a giraffe walk, legs and arms extended and moving left side with left side for the change and right side with right side. This one adds a lot of posterior chain flexibility and a lot of extended arm and leg coordination. Moving us to one of my favorites, not because it is so effective, but because it is very fun to go through. A very flexibility dominant one with our hands pointed outwards. We're gonna go for the ostrich walk, left side, right side, internal, external with our hands, adding massive amounts of posterior chain flexibility and looking like a goddamn moron when doing so. Forward and backwards, of course. Now this moves us to one of the harder ones. For the first time, we're gonna place our lower arms onto the floor instead of our hands. We're raising our knees and going through the army crawl, just like so. Coming closer with our knees, keeping our back somewhat extended and our arms flat on the floor, and reversing this movement for even more core engagement and a lot of hip flexor engagement as well. Very similar to this one, but requiring a little bit more strength. We've got the alligator, with our upper body slightly elevated, moving left side with right side with some rotation in our hip, forward and backwards. This is going to require a little bit more strength than the other ones and a little bit more coordination. And moving this one up a level to add even more hip mobility, the lizard crawl will have us as close to the floor as possible with the maximum amount of hip rotation and spinal rotation we can muster to add as much flexibility to this insane amount of strength and coordination we're gonna need to move through this pattern. This video is sponsored by the most important person on this platform, which is you, my dear viewer, by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and watching the whole thing to the end. Not only do you give me the motivation to make even more such videos, but you're also helping me to buy the most gourmet food for my two cats, so they do not kill me in my sleep. While this drill is a little bit more complex and a little bit more advanced, by the end of this video, I can guarantee you, you will know how to get there step by step, no matter what level you are. The cossack squat, in and of itself, an absolutely amazing strength and mobility exercise for your lower body. To do that as easily accessible as possible, we have 3 different levels. Our starting position is a wide stance with parallel feet, and while this is going to change, for now you need to make sure that both of your feet are pointing forward. That's very important. From this position, bend in one hip, keep one leg extended. We now have some internal hip rotation on one side, and we're stretching our adductors, working on opening up our hips even more. Switch from one side to the other, keep both feet flat and parallel, and work your way down until you can bring your hip joint to the same exact height as your knee joint. This will increase both the stretch we have in our adductors, and we will be working on our ankle mobility, which is also very important. Our second level will require a tiny bit more core strength. We now want to be able to sit down all the way without our heels raising. This is going to require immense amounts of ankle mobility as well as adductor flexibility. I would highly advise to take your time with anything where you feel a lot of stretching, because we do not want to get injured. This is going to set us back, and we're going to take even longer to progress. If you have problems with sitting down this low, using a stick for assistance until you do have the necessary flexibility and until you do build the necessary core and hip flexor strength to sit down all the way without assistance. And at some point you will be able to just do this all by yourself. And the difference between level number 2 and level number 3 is that now we are adding external hip rotation by turning one foot upward in the extended leg, and now we're also raising our heel. For one, this is going to require more balance, which is going to include your core even more and all the muscles surrounding your ankle to keep you from falling backwards or forwards, strengthening your foot musculature and stretching your feet as well, which is a nice bonus to have. And we always want to move all the way up and all the way down so we can add as much strength benefits to our quads and our leg musculature as well as our hip musculature, so we can combine, as we said, all the major training aspects. Crossing over, the right hand now grabs the left leg, if that is the extended side, adding the tiniest bit of lumbar or spinal rotation. Really push into that move, hold for a second or two, reverse all the way up, a lot of quad engagement, and cross over on the other side. The more you can move yourself into this rotation, the more you will be opening up your obliques and your spine, helping with tightness in your back, as well as tightness in your entire lower body. Not to mention that now we have even more adductor stretching and flexibility bonuses by pushing our knee actively outwards. Also strengthening our glutes on the outside, integrate our upper body when it comes to the strength as well, not just the flexibility. Of course, you won't be surprised that we have 2 different variations. Move through your foundation, the cossack squat, raise your heel, move into external hip rotation, and now we're gonna cross over the left hand behind the left extended leg. We're gonna keep a distance of 1/2 meter or 1.5 feet, and from here we want to push our hips up now, lengthening our entire anterior chain all the way throughout our chest, our lats into our fingertips, and we are flexing our entire posterior chain, and I mean our entire posterior chain, our calves to raise our heel, our biceps and glutes to push our hips up, our spinal erectors to push our back into this amazing extension. We're flexing our shoulder to pull that arm in and lengthen all the way. Hold for a second or two. When reversing, we move forward. Once again, you can use both of your hands to move yourself up and down before you cross over on the other side and push your hips up, lengthening your entire anterior chain towards your fingers while flexing your entire posterior chain also towards your fingers. With the next level taking us deeper into the flexibility part while requiring a little bit more strength, because once we've lowered down into our position here, instead of placing our hand behind the knee, this time we want to place our entire lower arm on the floor. This is going to force us to use more strength in our posterior chain and is going to add more flexibility in our anterior chain once we move as high as we can in our range of motion and start pulling our arm and fingertips towards the floor in this semicircle position. reverse this movement, all the way up, all the way down, lower arm on the floor, push your hips up, lengthen all the way, and so on. Now that we have all the necessary flexibility and most of the necessary coordination, once again, the hand behind the extended leg, pushing up. And now comes the upper body complexity, because we will switch hands and we will move explosively with the bent leg, just like so, adding a lot of spinal rotation, which we worked for before. And then we're going to thread the needle. That leg is going to go through our arms and our leg all the way forward, like so. Once you have the necessary anterior chain strength and posterior chain flexibility, you will start moving with your hand towards that foot. And once you develop enough upper body strength, especially in your delts, your pecs, and your triceps, you will start moving lower and lower towards the floor. And then of course we need to reverse this movement. We're going to use the exact same method. Pull that leg in, switch hands, move into this spinal rotation, which by the way feels absolutely amazing. Lower that leg, move forward and back into your starting position. So let's go through the whole thing one more time on the other side. Lower down, cross over, switch hands while elevating your leg, turn, thread the needle, work your way up to grabbing your toes, work your way up to lowering down, and then we have this semi one-sided push up to elevate our body, pull in our leg, reverse, insane amount of rotation in our spine, move forward. Second, little bit more advanced variation. Almost everything stays the same. We have our cossack base, we have our back bend, we have our hip push up. But this time, instead of threading the needle as we did before, we're going to bring our knees together into full contact, which means that the bent knee moves with internal hip rotation towards the extended knee. And we're going to, once again, switch hands, move into ankle flexion on this side, and start grabbing our toes. Once again, once we have the necessary flexibility, and when we do have the necessary strength, we will lower down once again into this pseudo one-sided push-up. Pull that leg in, reverse by switching your hands, add as much spinal rotation as you can, and elevate your upper body forward into the starting position. One more time fluently on the other side. Cossack squat, grab behind, elevate your hips, move into this rotation, bring your knees together, switch hands, and move as close to the ground as you can and as close to your foot as you can for that amazing posterior chain stretch. Reverse by bending your leg, switching hands, complete spinal rotation, move forward and upward. Let's check out how it looks when we do both variations in one single go. Complete cossack, complete hip elevation, switch hands, thread the needle, grab your toes, move low and push up, reverse, just like so, move all the way up, all the way down, and this time cross over, move low, grab your toes, pull in, reverse, switch hands, forward, and repeat as often as you want or can. Pick a handful of exercises, even if you do not do all of them, put them together into a single routine that you can do 2 to 3 times a week. Shouldn't take longer than 15, maybe 20 minutes if you're really slow. And if you thought I was exaggerating by how impactful this will be on your life, just try it out for a handful of weeks so you can come back and tell me how right I was. With that said, I'll probably see you very soon, so until then, have a good one. Captain Cairo, peace out.